Okay. So Heidi has managed to answer all 3 questions in one go.
Oh my gosh,
which was good.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, that was good. That was good.
Sorry.
That was
We're
good.
energized. No, that was good.
So maybe.
Why did you stop me? That was great.
Yeah, that was great. No. That was good. We were enthralled. How could we stop you in the middle of all that? So maybe other people can do the same. So basically the 3 questions are kind of what the current state of affairs are, what the policy implications are, and then what we can do about it. So what the current state of affairs is around the women in our communities and so forth, around gender equality, maternal health, and HIV and AIDS. What are the policy implications, or the key policies that can influence those issues, and then how we can take action on it, how you might be taking action on it, and then how we more broadly should be taking action in terms of building and strengthening the movement. So Heidi got us off to a great start. I don't know if there's anything more to say, but you were great, truly. This is all very, very positive.
Policy and what we can do. We're still going to need help and the black abortion.
So, Jason, do you want to go or?
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm just going to talk about the first question.
You can talk about all 3.
Oh. Okay. So hi, I'm Dazon, and just because this is going to come from several different places, so I'm just sort of going to try to frame it a little bit. My organization that I work directly with is called Sister Love. We're a 20-year-old, almost 21. We're a 20-year-old women's HIV/AIDS and reproductive justice organization. And I say it that way because while we've been an HIV/AIDS focused organization since our inception, we framed HIV as a women's reproductive rights issue from day one. We framed HIV within the overall human rights framework because by jumping in at the outset, in the late 90s to focus on AIDS and women, we didn't have any options but to look at all of the intersections that were impacting women around HIV and AIDS. And so it was incumbent upon us to recognize and understand how women's status, women's equality, women's ability to assert in terms of their own sexual identity and their sexual conversations and relationships. You're talking about bringing an epidemic, with the epidemic of AIDS coming along. One of the first things that we were learning from the gay men's community, because in the U.S., of course, we know that that's where the bulk of the epidemic started. There are 2 things that happened out of that. One is that there was this real it seemed like there was a seamless process for them to start talking about sex and sexuality and AIDS and how to reduce their risk because they could talk sexuality. And here we were having to talk to women all of a sudden about empowering themselves and talk about sex and sexuality and lay down demands and renegotiate how they're having sex with their partners as if all things were equal, knowing that they were not. So that was one of our first challenges. And another one really was being able to get folks or work within the reproductive health and women's rights community to understand the clear implications and impact that the epidemic of HIV and AIDS would have on sexual and reproductive health of women in the U.S. So we were very clear about those 2 things at the beginning and did not have any models for ourselves in the U.S. to figure out how to, 1, help women have those conversations, 2, how to even frame the conversation we needed to have with them about how to have those conversations. And of course, not having any models for how to integrate and intersect HIV and reproductive health or reproductive rights. And so at the outset, it was important for us to look at what was happening in other countries, particularly in Africa and the Caribbean, where folks were already out front because in resource poor settings, people pretty much don't have an option to silo and, okay, I'm going to go and fight AIDS for now. Well, over here I'm going to go and they have to fight everything at once because that's pretty much the only way folks get access. So we wanted to learn from how to do that better. And as a result, ended up in all of these different international spaces. The Beijing conference was important for us. The Cairo conference was important for us. All of the International Women in Health meetings were important for us. And what we learned, two things in terms of the current state. What we learned was that while our stories were pretty much the same as women in other regions of the world, nobody knew our story. And we didn't know how to tell that story. And so we had to start figuring out how to bridge the work that we were doing and putting it in the same frame as what other folks were doing. So even when the MDGs came about, it was that phrase, it was a no-brainer to figure out that the same, actually 8 goals were as relevant in the Deep South as the 3 that we're talking about today. And so we've tried to do our work at Sister Love on that. For folks who don't know, and I know there are folks in the room who do, but I think it's really powerful to point out in the South around HIV and AIDS, for example, and how this all fits together, is Heidi was